Welcome to Midweek Mysteries, and thank you all for being here. As always, I am your host, Nick Ryan. If you're new to the show, Midweek Mysteries is a shorter version of our full-length Sunday episodes, where we also enjoy giving a personal shout-out to our newest supporters, so please be sure to tune in. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, please become a patron at patreon.com/Paranormal Mysteries. Or if you'd prefer to make a one-time donation, please visit buymeacoffee.com/paranormal. And as always, subscribing to the podcast and sharing it with your friends is one of the best ways to show your support, and we appreciate it. Now, let's see what today's storytellers have to say. Today's first midweek mystery comes to us from Zoila. Zoila's story is called Prophetic Dreams. Zoila says, "Hi Nick, it's been a while. I'm here to send you more stories. I've always been able to dream about the future ever since I was a kid. I did not really think much of it, because I did not think that other people had similar experiences. But listening to your show taught me that I'm not alone. Therefore, I'm sharing one of my most significant prophetic dreams. I had a bad dream about my friend, we'll call her Jessica, getting into a car accident. In my dream, Jessica was riding in the front passenger seat of a silver Ford car that was being driven by a man. I did not know who. The man was relatively young, but much older than us, probably around 18 to 20 years old. Mind you, we were 13 when I had this dream. She was wearing our school uniform, and even had her signature hair bun on. My dream proceeded to show that the car drove through a construction site and hit a concrete wall, which caused the windshield to shatter. I saw Jessica with windshield glass all over her face and crying for help. She was bloody all over and was reaching for the driver for help. However, the driver, who was unharmed by the way, refused to help her and walked away, leaving her helpless and in agony. I was so bothered by my dream that the next day I hunted my friend Jessica down to tell her about my dream. I warned her not to sit in the passenger seat of a car for a while, just to be safe. She then asked me for more facts about my dream. She asked for the car type and logo, and about the driver. I had told her she was wearing the uniform, and it was a silver Ford car. It was driven by an older guy, and even gave a description of the guy's face. Jessica had grown weary with each of my answers, and then she decided to come clean. She stated that she had been secretly dating an older man around 19 years old who was driving a silver Ford car, and that they were scheduled to go on a date after school, hence the school uniform. Jessica was so freaked out about the dream that she decided to cancel the date. Later that day, Jessica got a phone call that her boyfriend had got into an accident. He had driven past a construction site and hit a wall. The car was wrecked, but he ended up being fine. It went exactly as it was in my dream. As soon as I heard this, I was so relieved that my friend listened to me and had stayed safe. I am not completely sure whether or not I saved my friend's life that day, or if it's just a mere coincidence, but either way, I'm just glad that she's safe. Thanks for reading. I'm grateful for what you do. Zoila. Our next story of the night comes from Arlie. Arlie's story is called Moving Dolls. Arlie says, "Hi Nick. Thank you for your wonderful show and hard-working team. I have several stories for you, and I will send them as I go, because I have been so busy at work. This starts with a little bit of background on my sister, Dee. She would constantly wake up at night because of the things she would hear and see. These things would make her cry. We would share a bed, as she was scared to be and sleep alone at night. On one of these cold nights, she woke me up by poking my shoulder. I noticed the fear in her eyes. I had to be brave, as I was older. She then whispered, 'Shh, do you hear them?' as she pointed to the Barbies by the window. I felt the stillness in the air, the hour of limbo. I saw the creeping pale moonlight rays coming into our room. Just then, I heard the Barbies talking and moving. I got up, grabbed my sister by the arm, and we ran out of the room. After my mother baptized Dee, she wouldn't hear or see these creepy things as much anymore." Thank you for this platform you made for us. There are so many people that do not believe, belittle, and make fun of us. I take all of these stories being told here as wise information to have in my pocket. As well, thank you for the support and environment you have created for us, so we do not feel alone. Best regards, Arlie. Our next midweek mystery comes to us from Brian. Brian's story is called Tool Honey. Brian says, "Hello. I have been a listener to your podcast for quite some time, but I have not heard an experience like mine. This experience happened when I was around 9 or 10 years old. I grew up near southwestern Ohio in the countryside. My uncle's big brick house and barn was next door to our house. The barn was big and was made out of thin sheets of metal, with a metal roof and working garage doors, and 2 man doors that could be locked. My grandpa used this barn the most, as he used to do odd jobs around the city in people's homes, so this barn had a bunch of old tools, furniture, plumbing, and electrical equipment in it. Our house was shared between my parents, my older brother, myself, and my younger sister. Our house was built on my grandpa's old cow pasture, as my grandparents lived 2 houses down in the opposite direction of my uncle. You can imagine that our front and backyards were large and open from trees, so someone walking around in our yard could easily be spotted, and our driveway was about a quarter of a mile from the road. My dad had a toolbox in the garage that he used to store most of his tools in. This toolbox was large, and one of those toolboxes that had wheels on the bottom with about 15 different drawers to store tools in. It stood about 4.5 feet off the ground. One day, my dad came out to grab something from the toolbox and noticed after he opened one of the drawers that his tools were covered in what looked like barbecue sauce at first. He immediately thought that it was my younger sister because she had a history of being mischievous. My younger sister and her friend that was over at the house pleaded their innocence. My dad also asked me and my brother about it, but we didn't do it either. My dad noticed that not only was there this substance in the drawer he opened, but it covered all of his tools, in all of the drawers of the toolbox. Frustrated, my dad cleaned all the tools and put them back. A few days later, my dad came out to grab a tool from the toolbox and noticed that all his tools were covered in this gooey substance again. Now he was pissed, because he thinks my sister lied, and then poured this gooey sauce all over his tools again. So, he finds my sister and tells her she needs to stop doing this, because she is ruining his tools. My sister is telling my dad that she didn't do it. My dad asks me and my brother, and we both said we didn't do it, and we have no idea what it is. So my dad goes back out to the garage and cleans all his tools, and wipes down the drawers. A few days later, my dad finds that all his tools are covered again. At this point, I think my dad starts to believe that it's not any of the kids playing some joke on him, because he cleans his toolbox again without asking any of us, but he scrapes this gooey substance out into an old butter tub. My mom takes this tub to the health department and is telling them this story of how my dad keeps finding this gooey substance every few days all over his tools. They laugh at my mom and tell her it's just the kids. So, the health department wasn't going to test the weird substance, but at this point, my dad had removed all the tools from the toolbox and brought the toolbox inside into the mudroom. The mudroom was the first room from the garage where we would hang our coats and take off our shoes. This room could also be locked. My dad brought the toolbox into the room and turns it around to face the wall and then locks the door. The next day he comes down, unlocks the door, turns the toolbox around, and finds that the gooey substance has been squirted all over the inside of the toolbox. In order for one of the kids to get inside the room, we would need something small like the end of a shoelace to insert into the doorknob to unlock the door. However, when you do this, it makes a decently loud sound. So, with my parents being home at the time, they would have heard it. Also, the toolbox was very heavy, even with there being no tools inside. My sister was around 8 at the time, and I could not see her move or turn that toolbox around, as it was also sitting on carpet, which would have made it harder to turn. My brother was around 12 at the time, but I could not see him doing this either, because me and him were always doing stuff together during the day, and we shared a bedroom at night, so I would know what he was doing. My dad, obviously confused and frustrated, cleans the toolbox again, but takes it over to the barn by my uncle's house, where he left it for a long time. During that time, he left it in the barn. The substance would keep coming back every so often, and my dad would keep cleaning it out. Eventually, it just stopped. Today, my dad still uses the toolbox and has brought it back over to the garage. Everyone we have told this story to has no idea what it could be. Was it bees, insects, kids, or something else? The substance at a glance first looked kind of like barbecue sauce, but it was more like a honey consistency. My dad said that it smelled kind of sweet, too, which is why we named this experience Tool Honey. There was no evidence of bees around this box at all. No one saw bees flying around the toolbox or inside the toolbox, and it doesn't explain how it happened inside the house, with the toolbox facing the wall, or inside a locked barn. During this time, we had other strange events happen. Our TV remotes would go missing, and would be found somewhere out in the yard, completely destroyed, like it had been hit by the lawnmower. This would happen multiple times. There would be darker colored grass that would form the shape of circles in our yard at times as well. One day my mom was hanging clothes out on the clothesline to dry, and came back after several hours to find that only my dad's clothes were ruined by what looked like if someone had thrown bleach on them. My mom shrugged it off and thought maybe it was from the washing machine, even though all of our clothes were mixed in with Dad's while they were being washed. My mom bought all new clothes for my dad and hung them out to dry after washing them, along with the rest of the laundry. She came back after several hours and found them bleached again. My parents haven't had anything else weird happen since. Our next story of the night comes from Belquineth. Belquineth's story is called An Odd Encounter While Riding My Scooter. Belquineth says, "Hello. I have been listening to your podcast while I work from home. I have decided to share one of the events that have occurred to me. I ride a large, crazy-looking scooter to my job in Chicago. I wear a white helmet with silver horns and a silver mirrored visor. This is so people on the road see me and give me space. Being seen is more important when you are on two wheels. The bonus of having a mirrored visor is that people cannot see me, or if I am looking directly at them at stoplights. It's a bit sneaky, and I don't do it a lot. This event occurred as I was riding home from work one day. I was riding down a side road, through a small town with forest preserves. It's a beautiful ride in the late summer to fall. I was on my scooter wearing all of my gear, and I was the first in a line of vehicles to stop at a red light in this tiny town. As I was waiting for the light to change, I saw to my left on the other side of the street a group of men in brown cassocks, like monks would wear. They were circled on a grassy area by the gas station on the corner. One of the men was half crouched down as the others were kneeling around him, almost like a coach, giving a pep talk. As I looked at these men, wondering what the heck they were doing, the man who seemed to be doing the talking stopped. His head swiveled up, and he looked directly at me. Nothing about this would be odd, since my riding outfit is very eye-catching, but he was really staring at me, and all the other men also turned and looked directly at me. And the way they turned their heads and looked, it was almost robotic, somewhat stiff and emotionless. Remember, my visor is mirrored, so they would have no idea that I was looking right at them. When I don't want people to know I'm looking at them, I keep my head facing forward, but I can side-eye and see a good amount on the left and the right. The looks on their faces was not like that of other people who see me in my gear on my scooter. Usually people laugh or smile or stare and shake their heads. Sometimes they point me out to their friends or give me a thumbs up. Instead, the stare from this man and the others was very intense and measuring, but their faces were somewhat blank, expressionless. I got the feeling that I wasn't supposed to be seeing them, and somehow, despite the mirrored visor, they knew I was looking at them. All this took place within the span of a red light turning green. Just 30 seconds, maybe a minute. The light turned green and I hit the throttle and sped off. But as I looked into my rearview mirror, I couldn't see them, but I really wasn't at the right angle to see them. At least that is what I told myself. As I rode home, I kept thinking, did I really see that? What the heck did I just see? Why were those monkish-looking men clustered by that light? Why did they look at me as if I was interrupting something, or I wasn't supposed to see them? Why didn't they smile, or laugh, or point? Should I ride back and see if they were still there? I rode past the same site the next day, and nothing was there. I still wonder to this day what I saw, and I think I should have circled back, but it seems too ridiculous. I should have asked the people at the gas station if they had seen the same group of men, but what if they said no? Would that make me feel any different, or add any more information to what I saw? That's the story. I wonder if anyone else saw them and know what the answer is. Maybe it's completely mundane. Maybe a group of monks were in the town for some reason. Maybe their ride had broken down and they were at the gas station waiting to fix it, but I don't remember seeing a car or van. Maybe there is a reasonable explanation. Maybe. Thanks, Belkwyneth. As we come to the end of this edition of Midweek Mysteries, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for tuning in and supporting the podcast. And a special thank you goes out to Zoila, Arlie, Brian, and Belkwyneth for writing in and sharing their experiences with all of us. If any of you have thoughts, advice, or a similar experience that you'd like to share with one of tonight's storytellers, you can email me, and I'll be sure to forward your message onto them. If you've witnessed something unexplainable and you'd like to have your story shared on the podcast, please contact me at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com or visit paranormalmysteriespodcast.com and click on the Tell Your Story link. All of our contact information can be found in the show notes. Until next time, I hope you all have a safe and healthy rest of the week, and we'll see you back here on Sunday with our next full-length episode. From all of us at the Paranormal Mysteries Podcast, thank you for listening, and please remember, don't wait for the unknown to come to you. Get out there and find it.